Try to find where I left off last time, more or less. And probably, I think I showed these things. So yeah, probably somewhere around here. This is the Japanese Buddhist avatar of the Krusenstern Lagoon shore. And as the wife of the main character, this of basically this whole scroll, like of the whole samsara, arguably. So this, shows the draped tree branch. This would be part of the tree branch. These would be the legs, but it actually seems to be retrograde. So this is painted backwards. So I did a new comparison to show that. Let's see. These are depictions of Zoroastrian underworld. So it's probably, very similar. Basically, a lot of the same traditions from and people down, which may, symbolize the underworld, the antipodes, where gravity is upside down. And yeah, this one too with the upside down person. So my friend Christian Otto Benson showed me these. He's one of the only other, people in the West that know that the underworld is America and, studies that. So yeah, this is her. So, okay, let me just see. I'll try opening a new tab, see if I could get a bigger image. So her, I'm realizing now that, like, I was thinking that just because it's such a blurry photo, because she's such a small part of the image, that it's just like blurry, but actually I think it's showing her nostrils here. Like, I thought it was just kind of a broken line, but it's showing her nostrils. So her nostrils are these two guys, and then the back part here would be this here somehow, this like inlet, or I mean this lagoon, and then her nose, her eyes, I think like one eye is like probably this little coastal lagoon, like that dark line, and then the other eye is like this lagoon, and the eyebrows, there's something in there, I'm not exactly sure. And her hair, this part right here, and like this little strand is like this little peninsula, and yeah. And so then this dark part coming down, it may be like this lagoon right here. They have these very regular shapes, kind of like faience bricks or something. So that's the Japanese map from the 19th century, like 1840s or something like that. So, but she's also Ireland. So, because basically the main characters in the story are arguably the British Isles, because they're the only happy people in, or straight, they're the only straightforwardly happy people in the cosmos, in samsara, at least in this scroll. You know, I mean, they're still doomed to be miserable because it's still the land of impermanence. It's the land of fleeting joy. But it's still joy. It's still happiness before they become miserable when they are France and Spain and other places. So yeah, so it starts out with Scotland as her husband, and then she's Ireland's. So this is her with her baby. So her face is Ulster, like her head is Northern Ulster, and her baby is Connacht. And so Air, that's Ireland, same thing. And here she is, the same person in Alaska. So you can tell she's the same, by the way her hair is neatly parted. I don't think any other character has that. The way she has this triple chin thing going or whatnot there. She has like same nose, mouth, eyes, like almost the same kimono but different. So yeah, I think it's clear this is the same person. So that indicates that the man opposite her in Krusenstern Lagoon is the same man that is Scotland's as well. So I just added like a pupil here to Loch Foy, which seems to be her eye. And then her chin is Belfast Loch. And Loch Knee, I think, is like part of her hair coming in here. So yeah. Sick. See, I at least finally got a new bed, or a new mattress. So I'm not. My mattress was like totally cratering and had like the springs stabbing through. All right, so this is not giving us a good image. There we go. Wangamura. So this is Aboriginal Australian mythology used to memorize geography and other things. Wangamura. This is a creation. This is from Gomeroi Dinawans. Wangamura. This is a creation story that my elders passed on to me about the first border of these two great nations, Kamilaroi and Wiradjuri. They were created by Bayame's sons, the Wangamura brothers twins. It was over a fight between them. In Kamilaroi, we call these rocks located in Dunedin, New South Wales, Wangamura. Whitefellas call it Ivy Rock or Split Rock. The creation of the boundary, the lore of sharing. By Biaim and his sons, the Wangamura twins. The landmark known to many as Ivy Rock, Kamilaroi, people call it Wangamura. It's located in Dunedin, New South Wales. These rocks stand as a sacred testament to a foundational moment in the history of the Kamilaroi and Wiradjuri nations. It marks the site where the first border between these two great countries was established, not through conflict, but through divine intervention and a powerful lesson in the importance of sharing. The origin story. The two massive boulders. So, Okay, wow, this thing is wigging out. Not wanting to let me like, okay, there. Well, these are the two, these are the two boulders that it's talking about. So, yeah, there's some visual. Okay. Two massive boulders that form Ivy Rock are said to be the physical embodiment of the Wungamura brothers, the twin sons of the great creator, Biame. According to the story, the brothers stood at this site locked in a heated dispute over a Gunur Bawura red kangaroo. As the argument intensified, his brother vehemently claimed the Gunur Bawura belonged to his respective territory. Their pride and inability to share blinded them to the interconnectedness of their lands and their bond as brothers. Each twin kept saying to each other, "The Bawura is on my side." The intervention of Biame. Witnessing their discord, Biame descended from the sky to resolve the dispute and impart a lasting lesson. So I'm not sure which star or constellation or whatever Biame is, but something in the sky. Biame struck the brothers in the midst of their argument, transforming them instantly into the two stone sentinels that remain to this day. Biame said, "There you will stay. This will be a lesson for all to learn." In the photo I provided with this story, you can clearly see two brothers looking at each other holding spears. I provided more photos of Wungamura in the comment section so you can see different angles of Wungamura. A legacy of lore, this transformation served a dual purpose, the establishment of country. The boulders permanently mark the boundary line, with one side forever becoming the domain of the Kamilaroi and the other that of the Wiradjuri. The lore of sharing. The site stands as a perpetual reminder of the dangers of selfishness. It remains a sacred instruction for all who walk the land to prioritize kinship unity in the spirit of generosity and sharing. Corroborees. Kamilaroi and Wiradjuri people would meet for corroborees being held at what is now the town's golf course in Dunedoo. Shared country. So the corroborees, maybe like the potlatch in the Native American, where they like shared things and shared knowledge and other things. Kamilaroi people would meet at what is now the town's golf course in Dunedoo. Shared country, Kamilaroi and Wurji would share the area of Dunedoo in respect of Wungamura. So it's a neutral ground. Instead of having a hard border, they have like a neutral ground. Which is smart probably sometimes. Shared country, Kamilaroi and Wiradjuri would share the area of Dunedoo in respect of Wungamura. This area was shared country. Interesting fact. So of course, these places that were shared country, that's like, then the Europeans would come and say, "Oh, look, nobody owns it." But no, it was shared country, actually. It was owned by two groups. They just overlapped. But, you know, the Europeans would use any way to steal people's land. Interesting fact, Wiradjuri means learning place in the Kamilaroi language. So they learned their lesson and now they're stuck there as rocks. I want to add to this post a bit of history about Kula and Dunedoo in this post. The name Kula is in Kamilaroi is a Kamilaroi word meaning Valley of the Winds. The valley was used as a meeting ground for the Kamilaroi and Wiradjuri people. The name Dunedoo means swans. It's either a Wiradjuri or Kamilaroi word for swans. I went and saw the area of Dunedoo, and you will find rock grooves, flakes, and scarred trees. This is obvious evidence of Kamilaroi and Wiradjuri people being here before colonization. I'm not sure, but maybe these grooves I saw was a place they went to before corroboree, or both nations would go there before or after corroboree. Either way, it's evident that Kamilaroi and Wiradjuri made canoes, shields, weapons, and tools in this area. This is something I copied and pasted below, which I found interesting. It talks about Kula National Park. This is what New South Wales National Parks and Wildlife Service wrote. November 2002, 25 Aboriginal cultural sites have been recorded in the park, plus a number of isolated artifact finds. The sites indicate the Aboriginal people used the Kula Tops area quite intensively for hunting and food gathering, either visiting it or living there for part or all of the year. Permanent water is available in most of the creeks and swamps, and the variety of life would have provided ample food. So the story reminds the two peoples that this is a shared area and that they're basically brothers. They're twin peoples. Most of the sites are open campsites on level ground adjacent to streams and swamps. The artifacts consist of flakes, backed blades, scrapers, cores, an axe fragment, and a hammerstone. Most are made of quartz plus some of chert, basalt, and quartzite. These materials would have been obtained on alluvial gravels. Almost all the artifacts were found along roads, as ground visibility within the forest is very poor. It is probable that the sites extend off the roads and that many more sites exist in the park. Oral history reports that a Bora ring was located in the park near North Island Swamp, but it appears to have been destroyed by agricultural activities. This is a possible shelter with art, but this needs to be confirmed for further study. If it is an art site, it is highly significant because of their rarity in the region. They later wrote that the Walhalla Aboriginal Land Council was notified about this. It will be interesting to know if any action was taken and if these sites were fully protected and have not been damaged since then. This was written in 2002, so hopefully action was taken. I will post the photo in the comments section of the rock art in Kula. You can clearly see a handprint on the rock. This note, this creation story was told to me by a few Kamilaroi elders from my country. There's a more deeper and spiritual meaning to this story that I will not share publicly. The story about Wangamura could be shared publicly. The story about Wangamura could be told differently in Wiradjuri. I never heard of the Wiradjuri story. If Wiradjuri people know this story about Wangamura, please feel free to share or message me personally, as I would love to know. If anyone knows of Aboriginal history in the Kula and Dunedoo areas, please feel free to share. One side of the rock is Kamilaroi, one side of the rock is Wiradjuri. I love this story, Wangamura twins. So this is like a really anthropomorphic landmark. So I have most of the Aboriginal Australian geomyths that I've accumulated, like photos of geomaps, are more like abstract, but there's a few that are zoomorphic, anthropomorphic, or anthrozoomorphic. So that's just a good one like that, a good anthropomorphic and maybe zoomorphic landmark that serves an important role symbolically and very practically. Let's see. This is Old Yupik mask from Alaska, 1900. World pigment, wood pigment, and vegetable fiber. Met Museum.
Worn during dance ceremonies, this Yupik mask depicts the artist's vision of the universe. The whimsical imagery combines elements drawn from the Arctic realms of earth, sky, and water, such as the face with the black paw motif, the finely rendered fingers of a human hand grasping a fish, of a bird, and the seal. Um, the bent willow bough that frames the central image once held feathers or other adornments. So, to me, that's implying that this is Earth's got a avatar of some sort of geography or topography or both. Um, somewhere in the Arctic, somewhere in Alaska. So I'm not sure what peninsulas or bays or whatnot this would be, but that's what they seem to be saying. Mount Rushmore, the six grandfathers, Thunkasila was named by Lakota medicine man Nicholas after a vision. The vision was of the six sacred directions: west, east, north, south, above, and below. The directions were said to represent wisdom, like human grandfathers. The granite bluff that towered above the hills remained carved only by the wind and the rain until 1927, when Gutson Borglum began his assault on the mountain. So they carved, Mount Rushmore, they carved like the founding fathers into it, even though the founding fathers didn't, they demanded, like Jefferson said, he didn't even want a tomb or a grave or, hardly anything, because he didn't believe in that. That was against his political and moral principles. So they fucked over him and the earth and the natives all at once. I don't know if that was Lincoln or Grant or somebody, or Johnson. I don't know. So let's see. Waru Fire Dreaming, Aboriginal Australian arts. This is just showing that the way that the Japanese and Egyptians sometimes depicted the underworld America as a land of fire, or at least maybe the western part of it. That's not that different from how a lot of cultures even represented parts of their own land. So this is Jorna Newberry. This is her own land, presumably, because mostly people they paint the their own country. So obviously it's not like an insult or anything. It's just a symbolic mode to represent land as fire, to represent like features like this as tongues of flame. Let's see, this is from the Japanese maps. So this is that tree that the legs are hanging over, and it has all these the pattern on the tree branch or trunk or whatever this is. I don't know if that's like a fungus or leaves or moss or something, but I think that relates to these patterns in here of waterways, but also these patterns showing these kind of like almost like papyrus leaves or something, or branches sticking out, whatever these are. They're black, so I think they represent these type of waterways too. So I'm not sure which is which, but somehow between these patterns and these patterns, they relate to these type of waterways in here that have weird type of patterns. Okay, so this is the guy in Krusenstern Lagoon who getting cut up, climbing up the sword tree of the woman on the other side. So this seems to be his chin, his mouth. I think this is his eye. And then this is this line under his eye. And then His hair might be the land, like up. And I mean, yeah, I'm not exactly sure about his hair. It could be topography or whatever. Could be even including stuff way up here, but I'm kind of thinking it's further closer in. I was thinking it could include this bay up here, or that even could be his hair. But then I don't know what would be the other hair, so I'm guessing not. And actually in here, there might be a smaller version of the same scene, like showing kind of the next phase of the story. He's like climbing down again. So this is Aboriginal Australian art, Bunjil's country, Bunjil the wedge-tailed eagle flying over the Youngs and Barwon River toward the coast. So I think, again, this relates to topography probably. I mean, it might be an AI image somewhat, but I think it's based on actual traditional geo avatar that probably relates to some mountain range or something in that area. All right, let's see. So for 7,700 years, the Klamath people passed down a story of an angry god who blew his own mountain apart. Geologists realized it wasn't a myth, it was a literal eyewitness account. When Mount Mazama erupted, it was one of the most violent volcanic events in North American history. It blew its summit apart, sending an ash cloud across the continent before collapsing inward to form what is now known as Crater Lake in Oregon. According to Klamath oral tradition, the chief of the below world, the underworld, which is Afro-Eurasia for us, we're the upper world. America is the upper world. So the chief of the below world, Liao, I guess. I'm thinking that's, or I don't know, two L's. I don't know what two L's is supposed to freaking be. I'm just going to say Lao. According to Klamath oral tradition, the chief of the below world, Lao, lived deep within Mount Mazama. When a mortal woman rejected his advances, Lao emerged from his mountain in a rage, throwing fire and hot ashes into the sky. Skell, the chief of the above world, who stood on Mount Shasta, 100 miles to the south, intervened. So, like the above world is, it's based on this antipodal thing. So usually some nearby mountain is seen as the summit. So it's either Mount Olympus or, Mount Zion or something like that. There's usually some localization of like the top of the world concept. And then the upside down underworld below, opposite hemisphere. The chief of the above world who stood on Mount Shasta, 100 miles to the south, intervened. The two deities hurled red-hot boulders the size of hills at each other, causing the earth to tremble and casting a darkness over the region that lasted for days. In the climax of the story, Skell forced Lao back into the underworld. Mount Mazama collapsed in on itself with a deafening roar, burying the enraged chief forever. Over time, rain and snow filled the giant resulting crater, creating a remarkably clear blue lake. Early European settlers dismissed the narrative as a colorful creation myth, but geological analysis confirmed it aligns perfectly with the physical evidence. Around 5,700 BCE, Mount Mazama underwent an explosive eruption. The narrative's darkness lasting for days matches the massive ash cloud that blotted out the sun. The red-hot... let me see. the red hot boulders, liquid magma. Red hot boulders reflect the pumice and pyroclastic bombs ejected across the landscape. Most remarkably, the eruption emptied the magma chamber beneath the mountain so completely that the peak could no longer support its own weight, causing it to cave in and form a caldera, exactly as the story described the mountain collapsing on top of Lao. Oral traditions are frequently categorized alongside fairy tales and folklore, but many indigenous cultures encoded vital geographical and historical data into these narratives to ensure the information survived across hundreds of generations. When stripped of the personification of the Earth's natural forces, the Klamath story of Lao and Skell is a 7,700-year-old eyewitness account of the birth of Crater Lake. But they're like distinguishing that from fairy tales and folklore, but that's what fairy tales and folklore are, you know? Like Snow White is like, you know, when in the Greek mythology, it's like one of the gods that gives the apple and says, "Let she who is the fairest of them all eat this apple," and then I think Athena eats it or something. I don't know. All right, so this is Ireland's. This woman has both Ireland and Alaskan topography, where she's, her face is Ulster. She's all of Ireland except Connacht, which is her baby. So, she has a kind of pronounced Neanderthaloid nose. And then this, the Antrim Hills here, this sort of reddish part, which in Celtic mythology is the red hand of Ulster. In this map is her, delineates her nostril. And then, Belfast Loch delineates her chin. And then Loch Nee here is like, part of her hair somehow. Loch Foyle is her, it's like her eye. And then Giant's Causeway is on her nose there. And so she's like the wife of the main character, kind of. Basically. The main character is Scotland, which was probably true in a lot of cosmologies, because just like Japan was holy as the land of the rising sun, Britain is holy as the land of the setting sun. And they're both gatekeepers to the underworld, America. So this is, in the lagoon. She's here. She's in this tree made out of swords. And then this guy is opposite her. So he's Scotland, but he's Scotland later with less hair and whatnot and more gaping wounds and whatnot, because he'd been climbing up the sword tree too much to try to reach his wife. But it might not really be his wife. It's probably just a vision that this place is like fucking with his head and cutting him up with. So there's his chin, mouth, eye, I guess, hair somewhere. And then his wounds are all through here. So I don't know exactly how they do it. And then this, like his knee, foot, his knee is foot, his knee is foot, and then his leg and other foot down here. So this is him as Scotland. So this is back when he had his hair. And so his nose, or, his face is here. And then somehow this, like, his hair. And his hands are Orkney and Skye. And then he's holding the Outer Hebrides here. And this is Strathclyde, or, basically the southwest, Galloway and all that. And yeah, and then a lot of these lines are going to be both islands and also rivers and whatnot. Like this line here could relate to this Antrim Peninsula. So this is the only happy part of the cosmos and this cosmology. Is this. This is the happy family, and then it's all downhill from there. So yeah, this guy's Scotland, and he's like the main character the text is referring to. And then I guess this is his daughter, her face is like the Lake District in England, and her body is England and Wales. You can kind of see the point of Cornwall on her kimono. Then the wife is Ireland, and the baby, probably son, is Connacht. So then here they are in the afterlife, a little worse for wear, where now she's the sword tree and he's the guy who's like getting cut to shit, getting the sword tree. So, he looks different, but he also looks a bit the same. Like even his mouth, similarly, positioned, or he has almost similar expression, but has the bald spot here. This is, after he got old and died and whatnot. And yeah. So I think he actually appears throughout like the cosmos, and maybe she does too, but at least she appears here, whether it's really her or just a vision of her. So yeah, here's her. This is her nose. This is her sword tree body thing. This is him. He's all cut to shit from climbing up to try to find his wife. But then when he climbs to the top, she like just appears at the bottom. They just do that like for a while. So yeah, there's Ireland and Scotland. So the shape of her kimono is all this like I guess Munster down here. And Leinster is like her knee, I guess, or something. Oh yeah, and then these Welsh peninsulas are like the hands of the daughter. And yeah. So here's her face. She has like in both avatars. He has a kind of small nose. She has a long Neanderthaloid nose. And so yeah, is it there, and then his chin, his wounds. Yeah. So they're basically the two main shores of this lagoon, because it's like a long lagoon. So this, like, let's see. Not sure if this describes this or probably, but oh no, this is about the other thing. Yeah, because it's like this is them as a happy family, but then they reappear as France and Spain, where his daughter, England and Wales, she gets sick, and then she becomes northern Spain, like the Basque coast, and so then she basically dies, and then the whole family is like depressed, and so that's when he says life is suffering, basically, which may somewhat mirror the historic Buddha's journey, because his number one disciple, his son, died in his 20s or 30s. So that might be what led him to start saying that life is suffering, because, that's a hard thing to go through, to lose a family member, lose a child. And so, yeah, this text like explains this story. Let's see. So it's like telling people not to love, not to be like too into other people, because we're all like gross and filled with worms. If we do not yet understand this state, our love is very strong. But when we understand, we give up all the passions of the heart and no longer allow it to cling. For example, if one does not see the dung, one can eat food. But as soon as one smells the stench, one feels nauseated. Again, we read, if this state is understood, it seems as if the high eyebrows, the blue eyes, the white teeth, and red lips were covered with the powder of dung. It is as if red powder were put temporarily upon a rotting corpse. How then can we look upon that body with our eyes, and still worse, come near to it and embrace it with lustful pleasure? To be in this state is to be in the great yellow hot water of lustful disease. The second state is the state of suffering. This body of ours, from the time of its birth, is continually subject to suffering. So this is like the Buddhists depict America as, hell, the land of torture. But then once it starts in America, it starts in the underworld with the torture, and then eventually the scroll reaches to the upper world after Eurasia, and it's portrayed basically also as a land of torture, just different types of torture. Like every place in the cosmos is basically a place of torture, other than just the British Isles, which are kind of torture too, but just in the sense of fleeting pleasure. So let's see, the second state, this body of the second state is the state of suffering. This body of ours, from the time of its birth, is continually subject to suffering. It is explained how this body of ours is subject to two kinds of suffering. Various diseases afflict the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, throat, teeth, chest, abdomen, hands, and feet. Thus the body is attacked by the 404 diseases. This is called internal suffering. Again, when a man is put into prison, he is subjected to various sorts of tortures. For example, the ears and nose may be cut off, or the hands and feet, and so various devils and evil spirits take advantage of the victim and inflict pain. By various sufferings, the body, so it's saying like the government is a devil that will kill you, or at least cut off your feet or whatever. By various sufferings, the body is thus continually being attacked. It may be said this body of the five skandhas, and all its postures of dignity, whether standing or sitting, awake or asleep, is altogether an existence of suffering. Skandha, not sure if that means passions or what. Goes on forever and never finds. This we call external suffering. In addition to this, states of suffering may be seen which need not be explained here. In the third place, there is a state of impermanence. The state of impermanence, I think, is the British Isles. In the Nihonshoki, we read as follows: the life of man does not stop even for a moment. It flows on more swiftly than a mountain stream. Though we may remain for today, tomorrow is uncertain. We may take, for example, the life of a man who, let us say, has accumulated good karma throughout a long life. A man cared for by many children and grandchildren who one day enjoy the flower festival and on another day gather to view the moon. If one or two of his children die, he is saddened because they precede him in death and his life becomes a burden to him. So basically the only happy part of the cosmos is the British Isles, where he's, having this happy life and grandchildren and da da da. But then immediately it turns to shit because his daughter dies, and then that's shown in the French and Spanish geography coastlines. So yeah, that's like the realm of state of impermanence. That's like as good as it gets in samsara. Though we may remain for today, tomorrow is uncertain. So, festival, if one or two of his children die, he is saddened because they precede him in death, and his long life becomes a burden to him. Henceforth, he sheds the tears of old age. His body gradually declines in strength and at last becomes a vehicle of impermanency, and he is made a lonely man. He continues to feel sad. Wealth may fill his coffers, and he may have a magnificent house with a roof facing east and west, and with a far view toward the south. But yada yada. So yeah, a far view toward the north and south. Yet, so it's explaining to you how to build a house, how to orient a house. Yet all these things pass away with time. The man changes, and all becomes but as a dream of yesterday. In a poem of the Daikyo, we read, all beings born into this world must die, and though life may be almost endless, still at last it must come to an end. Those who flourish now must decline. Those who meet must part again. Youth does not last long. Rosy cheeks fade in sickness, and life is swallowed up by death. No phenomenon is permanent. Let us then venerate what is truly venerable, and following the teachings of the Buddha and being diligent in doing work according to the teachings, let us seek the reward of eternal pleasure. Thus it is with man. Though he meets with the sufferings of birth, old age, and sickness, he still feels safe, but death he cannot face so lightly. Why then are we not more afraid? If we had a heart that fears, we would act like those who test the hot bath or like those who tread on fire. We would not lustfully stain ourselves in the five senses and the six passions. This is the heart of the teaching. Since this, then, is the nature of human existence, we ought truly to dislike it and flee from it. So, yeah. Like, traditional religion is very emo a lot of the time. And that certainly is the case here. But yeah, so this is the only part of the whole cosmos. There's like 40 different panels, and this is the only panel that's straightforwardly happy. That's the long life of happiness until it all goes to shit. And yeah. Here's Egyptian tombs. It's like every time they find tombs, and then somehow nobody managed to whitewash these tombs yet, so we can actually see African people depicted. Save the dingo. Let's see. Okay. So this Aboriginal Australian culture. In the first ceremony documented by the colonizing British on this land in 1795, English judge advocate David Collins was invited to witness a 10-day tooth avulsion ceremony, the Yulong Arabadiang, held in the Gadigal ritual ground near Farm Cove in Sydney. A key part of this coming of age ceremony was the embodiment of the spirit of the dingo in the young Gadigal boys that were being initiated by Gamarigal elders there. So the tooth avulsion, I think they like knock out their front two teeth or something. Or I don't know. I think at least if they're in Eastern Australia, I think some of those, at least in Eastern Australia, had a initiation ritual. So it's ironic that I'm like collecting all this knowledge from all these initiated traditions when like I probably would be the last person to agree to like, conform or join anything. I mean, I was a big joiner when I was a kid, and then I grew out of it after I like accidentally joined like a fake crip gang and like got beat up for nothing. I was like 13 or 12. So yeah, in the first ceremony documented, so they're trying to embody the spirit of the dingo in the boys being initiated. This was a sacred ceremony that no doubt had been conducted generation after generation for thousands of years. The dingo is intrinsically linked to the deeper fabric of First Nations peoples' history, cultures, and spiritual lives on country. They feature in the creation stories of many nations, tribes, clans all over what is now called Australia. Historically, their howls were heard from the rugged and rocky ranges of the northwest across endless deserts and salt lake country to mountainous valleys and tropical rainforests all the way around to the sweeping southern coastal plains. Today, they remain culturally valuable totemic beings. So the totemic beings are used in all these symbolic type of, knowledge systems. Totemic beings to many First Nations groups and are in turn held in the highest degree of respect to their corresponding skin families in the First Nations kinship system spanning across songlines coast to coast within the world's oldest continuous living cultures. In pre-colonial times, at a practical sense of daily life happenings, dingoes were utilized by First Nations people, particularly women, as hunting partners. Guardians, and bedwarmers for the children. In 1828, colonial explorer Edmund Lockyer noted that he was shocked to see that the First Nations people he encountered treated dingo pups with great love and reverence, citing that some women were even seen breastfeeding them. The dingoes were allowed to share the best meat and fruit and could sleep in their families' huts. When misbehaving, the dingoes were merely chastised rather than beaten. In the desert country, dingoes were, it's like people will always try to portray non-white cultures as so savage and cruel, but often you find the opposite. Like a lot of non-white cultures never even would beat their own children regardless what would happen, and it was only when, Christians taught them to spare the rod, spoil the child, and all that shit. Just like Jesus would do, or whatever, I guess. So, in the desert country, dingoes were prized as water diviners, being able to locate water sources across vast expanses of seemingly inhospitable land. In Aboriginal mythology, the travels of ancestral dingoes map out songlines, graphemic maps tracing pathways across the continent from one water source to the next. Their stories tell of the formation of mountains, waterholes, and star constellations. In some accounts, dingoes emerged from the ground as rainbows. In others, they dug the water holes and made falls as they traveled through the landscape. So any mythic story that's used to memorize geography, fits into the type of tradition. Uh, Water diviner, living blanket, water diviner, wild pet, a cultural history of the dingo. Dingoes deserve to be respected on country just as much for their cultural and spiritual value to First Nations people as they should be for their vital ecological role being native top order predator. The voices of First Nations people should always be consulted first and last before any decision is made about their presence on country, as it should be with any environmental decision making process across Australia. So that's probably in terms of like the government trying to eradicate dingoes or whatnot. Dingoes are like dogs, type of dog, I think. In the first ceremony document, so this is the ceremony. So principal performers were all of the tribe of Kamarai, who paraded around the Yulong several times, sometimes running upon their hands and feet, and at other times crawling on all fours to imitate dingoes, the the dogs of the country. So a lot of traditional dances are to memorize animal movements, so you can recognize different species and know what they do. Um, the initiates, seated at the head of the yulong, remain perfectly still and silent as every passing dingo man throws up sand and dust on them with their hands and their feet. Each has a sword thrust into his waist girdle, and the curve of these hardwood weapons positioned above their backs reminds Collins of the curved tail of the dingo. He understands by this ceremony power over the dog was given to them, and that it endowed them with whatever god or good or beneficial qualities that animal might possess. Collins records 3 words: dingo, lingo, and waringo for the native dog that howls and cannot bark, but neither he nor any of the other white specters could then have known of the significant role that the mythological dingo played in sharing parts of the mythology. So anyway, that's interesting, more symbolic cosmology, zoomorphic there. Let's see. So I was watching I went to the Obon Festival, Japanese Buddhist festival of the afterlife, and especially of the illusion Gaki realm, because it commemorates like a Buddhist monk, like one of the disciples of Buddha, that his mother had reincarnated in the Preta realm, the Gaki realm, the hungry ghost realm, and he was like trying to help her and like help to liberate her. So anyway, me and my mom went to this in San Jose. I guess it's like the biggest one in the country, or one of the biggest. There's like over 1,000 people dancing. I did the dance. I did like 3 of the dances that I mostly butchered, but they're like the ghost dances. But they're like the Aboriginal dances where they are used to memorize things, like especially different jobs like mining and farming and stuff like that. It acts out the different activities and actions of these jobs. But like, so this, and then they put up all these well, I don't know if you can see it here, but they put up lanterns. Oh yeah, the lanterns there are supposed to guide the ghosts back to visit the upper world. And so, it all relates to these different traditions. This is an Aboriginal Australian type of tradition like that. In Borara and Gunartpa languages, the figures represented, these figures, are generally known as Wangara ghost spirit. For the Warawara clan, ghost spirits have their own particular characteristics and their own name, Wara Burn Burn. The Wara Burn Burn and the closest related Galabarbar spirit, owned by the Balkara clan, are also Manikai song topics. The spirits are related to each other as maternal grandparent and grandchild, just as the people of Warawara and Balkaranga are. The dancing of the two ghost spirit figures forms the finale performance for funerals, and this is the final goodbye to a deceased family member. So it's like, like the Obon festival that I went to, it's like, has these things about ghosts and whatever, but it's also actually commemorating the dearly departed. Same as the Mexican Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos. So it's only in the, modernized, westernized, whatever you want to call it, Anglo world that we have Halloween, which is originally to commemorate our dearly departed, but instead we just demonize the dead and, we just say how evil and scary they are. So that's how evil and corrupt our fucking society is, that we hate our own ancestors. We have a totally inverted culture, if you can call it a culture. So yeah, these guys, they use these type of things, but they use it to actually honor the dead. In many ways, the Wara, Burn Burn, and Galabarbar ghost spirits are like people. They emerge from the patches of jungle on Warawara and Balkaranga country in the late afternoon and go hunting in family groups of men, women, and children. They stay in contact with each other by calling out as the men hunt for fish, and the women walk with their dilly bags looking for vegetable food. The ghost spirits are associated closely with white ochre, and artists commonly paint the bodies of carved figures in white. Different types of ghost spirits wear different patterns. Wara Burn Burn is decorated with uniform white dots, while others are painted white all over. Some ghost spirits are shown with the design painted on their chest and filled with cross hatchings. Same designs that are painted onto Japi and Kuyinda male initiations. So it could also have some celestial significance, with the white dots being stars and the crosshatches being stars. And they're white, so that's partly why, like, when white people came to all these places, people were scared because it seemed like a bunch of ghosts or like skeletons or something, because they never seen people with like no melanin or so little melanin. Let's see. This is like some shamanic art online, Huichol Mexican art. So it's something they say about original Wixárika yarn paintings, handcrafted by Eligio Carrillo, a Mara Akame shaman. Of the indigenous Wixárika people of Mexico's Sierra Madre Mountains. Each painting is a Niarika, a sacred doorway. The symbols inside aren't decorative. They carry the visions of a shaman pressed by hand into beeswax. So I think these are like cosmic models, showing, the sun, showing the four directions, probably showing a lot of very intricate science that is only fully known to the initiate who can read it. So I watched Moana and, the new live action one. So they have, it's based on this same type of tradition of like islands memorized and represented as people or as animals or whatnot. So this island in Thailand, some people think is the basis for this Moana island lady laying down here, Tafiti. Well, this is supposedly Tahiti, so maybe it's based on that, but I'm not really sure, because if so, that's just one little part of Tahiti, I think. But yeah, this concept of like being these islands that are alive, and then they eventually lie down, and so in the dream time they do all their activities, but in current time they're lying down. So yeah, this one, it kind of looks like a face here and a shoulder, an elbow, a butt. That's in Thailand, so I don't know if it's actually related to the Moana one or not. But also, okay, so Tafiti in Polynesian mythology and Disney's Moana, Tafiti is a life-creating goddess who formed the islands of Polynesia, known as Tafiti Island. After Maui stole her heart, she became Te Ka, an earth and fire demon. Her narrative and the initial name Tepo for Te Ka align with Hine Nui Tepo, the Maori night goddess. So it's like the goddess of the underworld. She may like be the underworld, or she may be the night sky of the underworld. I don't know. But like Maui himself also like creates islands. So he pulls islands from the I got in trouble for telling somebody to eat Tide Pods. Now they're like offering me like therapy. So yeah, there's Tafiti, the earth goddess, island goddess. And so yeah, this is like the cartoon version, and this is the more AI version. So well, yeah, capitalism is cannibalism. Okay, shows it now. So yeah, this thing's not even trying to load at all. It's so bad. So Maui creates all the islands. He's, I guess, pulls them up from the bottom of the sea using his magic fish hook. So this says Maori mythology, Maui and the giant fish, the birth of the North Island. It says Maui must be from the South Island. So it's saying based on the mythology because of how he captures the North Island as a fish. But actually, and it's saying he must be from the South Island. I think it's the South Island. So this is the North Island, this is the South Island. So I think this is his face, like this is, his nose, his eye, his mouth, his chin. And then this is his hook. He's a famous magic hook. And then this is the fish, the North Island. So this is with the south up orientation, like a lot of ancient cosmology. So this is his hook, or what seems that it would be his hook. Fish hook, magic fish hook. This is him again pulling up or capturing the North Islands with his hook. This is this peninsula on the North Island. It says, do you know that Hawke's Bay's, this is Hawke's Bay, New Zealand. Did you know Hawke's Bay's Maori name, Timatua Maui, comes from the legendary fish hook of Maui? According to tradition, Maui used his hook to pull up Te Ika a Maui, the North Island, and the curve of Cape Kidnappers Te Kaue a Maui represents the hook itself. As we celebrate Te Wiki O Te Reo Maori 2025, we're proud to share the stories and landmarks that shape who we are as a region. So that's what, there's a lot of these stories about Maui, different places in Polynesia, I think. So this seems to be that iteration of the hook out of the fish. So here he is with his fish hook. It says, Maui believed that more islands lay sleeping at the bottom of that wide shining sea, so he grabbed his magic fish hook to wake them up. And, whoops, yeah, there we go. And so this one iteration of him in New Zealand as New Zealand South Islands. And then this island could even be an iteration of him when he turns into an eagle. And all right, so I think this, I'm looking in Hawaii. So I think I've found like multiple iterations of his hook and of him. Yeah, well. So I think this is an iteration. Also, Niihau Island in Hawaii as him, and this thing as his hook. This other little island. So Molokini Crater, and then I think this is another iteration of the hook. This is the hook. This is the hook. These are two separate volcanic craters, I think. This is Kaula Islands, Seabird Sanctuary. This is Niihau with Lahua. So I think Lahua is also an iteration of the hook. This is live where he has to look through the sunglasses to see the truth, and so he sees capitalism as just cannibalism. So this would be his Maui's face. This is the actual island Maui. So this would explain why it's actually called Maui. This is his face. Hair is kind of underwater, but you can kind of see the outline of his hairline. His hair sticking out. And so yeah, it probably was a better face before with the sea level rose. And then this is his hook, his magic hook is off the coast right there, but it's pretty small, so I zoomed in here. And then this is the Neo version, so I think his face kind of changed shape. He's a shapeshifter. Here he looks more like The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, who played him in the movie. And then this is his hook in this iteration. And it makes sense that he would say that the magic hook brings up the islands from the deep, because his hooks are all volcanoes, so it is volcanic, creates all the Pacific Islands. There's him as New Zealand with his hook down here. So yeah. Let's see, this, this is from the festival, the Obon Festival, so you can see these lanterns that are left out. My mom took this picture. This whole sky turned like deep pink later or earlier or something, but at least my mom got this picture of the lanterns, stuff that are supposed to guide the ghosts back from the Aleutians or from the Kuril Islands, which are maybe seen as another branch of the Kaki realm. There's Maui. So yeah, this could be another iteration of him, Oban, that like he has a bird, that this would be his beak, and that this would be his body. So in New Zealand, this is the goddess that the movie Geo Goddess is based on, that she represents the underworld, or associated with the underworld, and here Maui is trying to enter her. So she may be Newt, like the sky goddess Newt, who you like Ray enters her mouth at night and then emerges from her vagina in the morning, I think. And then Nui Tepo, the great woman of the night. In Maori mythology, is a goddess of night and death who receives the spirits of humans when they die. So she represents Afro-Eurasia, or is associated with Afro-Eurasia, the underworld, because Hawaii is closer to America, so probably their underworld is Afro-Eurasia. She receives the spirits of humans when they die. She is the daughter of Tane Mahuta, Tane Tuturi. So she's like the Japanese underworld goddess, Izanaga or something, or Zamna. She shepherds the Wairua souls into the first level of Rarohanga, preparing for the next stage of their journey. So she's like the Yama of her cosmology, I guess. Before becoming Hine Nui Tepo, she was known as Hine Titama. So yeah, it's like Itzamna, or I don't know. She might be that same tradition of the Japanese and maybe the Mayans with Itzamna. Ixchel, I don't know. Although Itzamna, I think, is male in the Mayan. Unaware of their true relationship, Hine Titama married her father, Tane Mahuta. Upon discovering that her husband was in fact her father, she left the world of the living and descended into the underworld. There she became Hine Nui Tepo, the goddess of night and death and the guardian of the spirits of the deceased. It's funny how like we're taught that like the ancients didn't know what inbreeding was, so they were all inbred. But actually, like in every culture, like so much of their main mythology is based on the taboo of like, of how taboo it was to uh, marry your relatives or whatever. So, and that's similar to the Yama story where Yama is like somebody tries to trick Yama to marrying his sister or something, and then he doesn't do it, or in some versions he does do it, but then he like kills himself or something, and then I guess goes to the underworld. So anyway, it's all somehow connected. Maui attempting to enter Hinenui Tepo, so that makes it seem like she either is the underworld or at least the underworld sky. Hinenui Tepo meeting house at Tewati in Greece. So there's a whole meeting house like dedicated to this underworld goddess. So the guardian of the spirits of the deceased. And see, Hinenui Tepo, also known as the Great Woman of the Night, is the goddess of death in the underworld. Her father, Tane, the god of forests and land mammals. Her mother, Hine Ahu One, is a human made from earth. We have to like move. I'm like freaking. All right. So known as the Great Woman of the Night, goddess of death in the underworld, her father Tane. She is the second child of Tane and Hine Ahu One. Without her knowing their connection to each other, Tane pursued then married his daughter Hine Titama, who conceive and give birth to their daughter Hine Warangi. Hine Titama ultimately became Hine Nui Te Rohingya after discovering that her husband Tane had knowingly betrayed her and was also her father. This trauma led her to the underworld, becoming Hinenui Tepo, god of the night and guardian and member of the spirits. So that's because in many ways Maui seems to be the same as Yama, but in this sense, the same as Yama. So maybe Yama is kind of a composite of whatever proto myths created both of them. Maui's encounter. The great hero Maui is tricked by his father into thinking he has a chance to achieve immortality. In order to obtain this, Maui is through her vagina. While Hine Nui Tebo is and dresses himself ready and turns her to enter himself into the goddess. The birds who were nearby fantails into laughter, alerting Hine Nui Tepo. Nui Tepo reacted to being molested by crushing him with the obscene vagina. Fuck. That's gnarly. I mean, I guess he deserved it. But that's how you know that she's an underworld chick, because her vaginas have teeth. Man to die. Okay, so she was in the underworld, then he dies. So that was Machama though. Because Yama is the first man to die. And Yama seems to be Saturn, and Maui seems to be Saturn because Maui is also the bringer of fire, who's Prometheus, who's also been described as Saturn or an aspect of Saturn, avatar of Saturn. stupid internet into like telling the truth about something. What is the data proving human brains process information analogy? It's like a lot of people dismiss my work, but actually like the idea of ancient people, you know, processing information using analogy and association, it's actually a given, you know, that's what educated people have known for a long time is how the brain works. So anyway, they say cognitive scientists and neuroscientists prove that human brains process information through association and analogy by tracking how physical brain regions map concepts, generate predictions, and use electrical waves to bridge ideas. This reliance on relational thinking rather than isolated facts forms the foundation of human intelligence. Meanwhile, people tell me I'm like schizophrenic for doing this. But meanwhile, it's like the foundation of human intelligence. So no wonder it triggers all these like brain dead NPCs. Key data and proof. Predictive processing models. Data shows the brain is not a passive receiver of data. It rapidly extracts rudimentary information from its environment, accesses stored memory, representations, associations, and forms analogies to predict what will happen next. Semantic brain mapping. Researchers use fMRI, functional magnetic resonance, to track blood flow while people listen to stories. The data reveals structured semantic maps across the cerebral cortex. Concepts that share meaning or association clustered together physically, proving the brain relational similarity. And video they were talking about how like the brain, like they've shown that people when they're like thinking about like, you know, going back in time, you know, like some like the passage of time, their brain, like it's like the same parts of their brain that deal with space, deal with forward, backward, all that. So it's not just like by accident that we use a lot of analogies. Like that's just, we have no choice. That's how the thing works. So the fact that the ancients had a whole education system based on analogy just means that they were going with the grain instead of against the grain like modern educators. So yeah, proving the brain. So researchers use to track blood flow, semantic maps, concepts that share meaning or association cluster together, physically proving the brain categorizes the world via relational similarity. Like there's a peninsula that looks like a bird, so you can use that to memorize the peninsula. Prefrontal cortex activation. Studies show that analogical reasoning activates specific networks in the prefrontal cortex and frontopolar cortex. This area of the brain is tasked with abstracting relations, finding the pattern across different domains. Event-related potentials, ERPs, EEG data monitoring tiny electrical voltage changes in the scalp proves that encoding different types of associations, e.g. fusing two concepts versus juxtaposing them, triggers entirely different brainwave patterns. Newer analogical computing in neurons. Newer neuroscience models propose that rather than relying solely on individual sequential synaptic firing, the brain self-organizes its information processing through overlapping dynamic electrical waves. These waves interact with each other to perform analog computation natively. Everyday examples. Association. Smelling vanilla extract instantly activates memory clusters of baking or your grandmother's kitchen. Analogy. Understanding a new invisible concept like electricity by using a familiar one like water flowing through a pipe allows your brain to make immediate useful inferences. Although it might also mislead you because supposedly electricity is not even going through the wires, it goes around the wire. I don't know. Seen that in a video. Perspectives from cognitive scientists. Analogies involve reframing novel encounters using knowledge of familiar, relationally similar context stored in memory. Thinking as analogy making. So this is saying that analogy is what thought is. Like, it's not that just for the best types of thought you need analogy. It's that without analogy, there's no thought. Thinking as analogy making toward a neural process account of general intelligence by Stephanie Thebes. Abstract. What is the secret of human intelligence? A key discovery in psychology is that performance correlations across diverse cognitive tasks are explained by a few broad abilities and one overarching general factor, which is also predictive of real-life achievements. Whether these factors correspond to biological processes is a century-old debate. While previous research focused on localizing their correlates in brain structure, connectivity, and activation levels, the mechanisms of neural information processing related to intelligence are still unexplored. I outline a new approach integrating psychometrics and neuroscientific advances in identifying the computations underlying single tasks from their representational geometry to provide a novel perspective on this topic. In particular, I propose a neural process account of the general factor that builds on the central role of structure mapping, the process of abstracting and reasoning based on relational knowledge in human cognition. Let's see. Neural coding properties in the hippocampal and prefrontal parietal systems that enable inferential leaps through structural abstraction might contribute to the general factor. In general, integrating neuro-relational and psychometric research has the potential to uncover core principles of natural intelligence. The challenge of definition, the secret of human intelligence. The question is at the heart of cognitive sciences, including psychology, neuroscience, and artificial intelligence. Addressing this question is challenging because it first requires defining and measuring intelligence. In psychology, intelligence is an umbrella term for the sum of cognitive capacities and has been studied through performance patterns in multitask batteries. Relatedly, a key goal is to explain generality in how humans can perform multiple tasks in different domains. This article is concerned with psychometric research on the structure of cognitive abilities, particularly in quantum overlap between diverse cognitive tasks, and how these insights can effectively be integrated with advances in cognitive and systems neuroscience, positive manifold, and the structure of intelligence. A key psychometric discovery is the positive manifold, which refers to individuals who perform well on one cognitive task tend to perform well on others and is quantified as the general factor G. Specifically, it is derived through factor analysis, a statistical technique to identify the extent of shared variance among performances across diverse tasks. Decades of psychometric research have converged on the well-validated blah 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 taxonomy, which it's a hierarchical factor structure of cognitive abilities A few broad abilities that underlie a wide range of specific skills load to different degrees on a common factor G. Among these broad abilities, fluid intelligence, the capacity for reasoning and problem solving, is statistically almost identical to G. Reasoning tasks such as progressive matrices, series completion, and analogies show the highest correlation with most other tasks and provide a strong indicator of G. So it's basically saying, let's see, analogies basically are a key to a key sign of intelligence, reasoning ability. This implies that G is not dependent on the specific selection of tasks and reinforces the notion of a unitary construct. However, there is no agreement on how to interpret G. While from a psychometric perspective, G as a measure of the positive manifold is established, its nature as a psychological construct remains debated. In particular, the debate revolves around whether G can be equated with cognitive or biological variables, and whether a causal factor underlies this latent variable. The dominant view considers G an emergent unitary property of interacting neural systems or processes. Different theoretical accounts vary in the degree to which G can be equated with cognitive neural variables that exist individually and can be considered a trait, G theory, or merely reflects a statistical index. For construction and application of intelligence tests. During the construction of an intelligence test, a battery of tasks is selected to cover a broad range of cognitive skills and is administered to a large sample. Factor analysis then identifies underlying factors that explain the patterns of performance correlations among the tasks. Factor loadings represent the strength and direction of the relationship between each task and the underlying factor. For example, a high positive factor loading indicates that performance on a specific task is strongly related to the factor being measured. Tasks with higher factor loadings have a greater influence on the factor score. Tests are constructed and evaluated based on certain quality criteria, e.g. objectivity, reliability, and validity of test items on large cohorts of participants, often grouped by broad demographic variables, including age and educational attainment. Individual test scores can then be used in conjunction with the factor loadings obtained from the factor analysis to estimate an individual's factor scores. Okay. Yeah, like I screenshotted all these, but I didn't read it all yet, so I was hoping it would be a little more straightforward, but so let's see. Representational geometry. Neural correlates of intelligence. Intrinsic structural and functional connectivity. I don't know. Maybe there's not much I can really glean out of, but at least it's definitely saying that analogy is strongly associated with general intelligence, general reasoning ability, general pattern recognition, etc. So it might just relate to how the brain maps things out, creates matrices of meaning. All right, well, I don't know what it all says. Maybe you can figure out exactly what it's saying. For example, understanding okay, structure mapping as a G-related mechanism. Analogical reasoning entails drawing inferences based on abstract relational similarities rather than perceptual similarity or statistical covariation between two situations. For instance, understanding the analogy an atom is like the solar system requires evaluating the higher order similarity of the relations in both terms. Recognizing and exploiting relational similarities foster inferential leaps in learning and reasoning and allow for the transfer of knowledge across domains, which is key to create insight and significant and scientific advance. Analogical reasoning has been considered uniquely advanced and central to human cognition, except by all the normie NPCs that hate on me all day. For instance, it has been shown that participants were more likely to solve a novel problem when prompted with two problem analogies or analogs rather than one, which facilitated the prior recognition of relational similarities and abstraction of a solution structure. And okay, sorry. So recognizing yada yada. For instance, it has been shown that participants were more likely to solve a novel problem. Analogical reasoning also appears as an unprompted natural strategy, for instance, employed by scientists in explaining and generating new scientific concepts. The ability to reason analogically develops gradually, reflected in a shift from reliance on perceptual features to using relational similarities to solve problems in later childhood, and is considered a key driver in the development of abstract thinking and advanced reasoning. Relatedly, relational reasoning is also the best single proxy measure of the general factor of intelligence. Without analogical reasoning, human learning would be confined to direct observation and trial and error. In contrast, analogical reasoning allows for inferences beyond immediate experience, positioning it as a mechanism that fosters creativity and abstract thought. Accordingly, a cognitive theory of human reasoning holds that humans form abstract knowledge structures, i.e., concepts, and understand new situations by alignment with known structures. The aligned structures provide the basis to draw inferences via structural pattern completion, highlighting the elements missing in the new situation. In a classic example, learning the concept of an atom is facilitated by discovering a relational similarity to the solar system with respect to several electrons orbiting one nucleus. This relational alignment can foster inferences about further properties of atoms, such that the nucleus might be more massive than the electrons. In line with this idea, a computational framework for concept learning and abstraction notes that many natural data can be described by a few basic structural patterns, such as grids, circles, or trees, which reflect organizational principles across domains. For instance, tree structures can represent taxonomic hierarchies in biology, as well as authority relations in corporate structures. The recurrence of structures may facilitate the learning of new concepts by inferring and evaluating generative models of the data, and highlights the efficiency of structure mapping as a processing mechanism. If processing mechanisms underlie the general factor, their influence on the broad abilities might be proportional to the G-loading of those abilities. Natural mechanisms of relational reasoning may particularly affect those broad abilities that correlate highest with the general factor. These are reasoning, visuospatial reasoning, the breadth of and depth of knowledge, and learning and memory. Structural knowledge can help predict and generalize, i.e., it adds reasoning and accelerates learning by enabling the acquisition of more information and is unambiguously provided by the environments. This leads to broader knowledge, including more explicit concepts to draw upon, which in turn facilitates new learning, reasoning. Thus, in addition to potential direct effects of structure mapping on the relatively G-loaded broad abilities, mutually reinforcing interactions between them may contribute to positive manifold via a virtuous cycle. Okay, I'm not sure if there's anything else, but at least that did basically explain that reasoning works by association. So the better you are at seeing connections, the better you are at understanding things. So this again is the woman who is Ireland, or most of Ireland, and also I guess the southern shore of Krusenstern Lagoon. And so yeah, she's got her two nostrils there. This shape here is actually this island right here, but it's flipped retrograde. I'll try to do a comparison of that on its own. I guess maybe this is her hair. I should have left more room for her hair. And, she has the triple chin here, but I think it kind of relates to this peninsula and some other little peninsula being like the folds of her chin. And yeah. This is Sonic Island in the Gaki realm, Preta realm, the Aleutian Islands. So this might be the one that the Obon Festival is based on, because this is, in my maps, this is the only woman that I've found in the Preta realm, in the Gaki realm. So she would be maybe the mother of the Buddhist disciple who had reincarnated there, and that he somehow freed her from it by being giving thanks to her and also paying it forward to the Sangha congregation of people around him that somehow that liberated her. So this hand part is actually here, I think. So they always reconfigure stuff, but like, her hair goes up, down, and then out. So that's like up, down, and it goes out in like 2 branches. So that's like 1, 2. And her mouth is there. Her eyes are, I think, this and something in here. And see, her arm and hand are this peninsula and this peninsula. And then her boob here is this other peninsula. Stuff like that. So yeah, this is from Krusenstern Lagoon. So it seems that probably the trunk of the tree is probably the coastline that separates Krusenstern Lagoon from the Chukchi Sea. And so yeah, and then this part here, this branch of the tree would be this branch of the tree coming out, and then the 2 legs would be this part and then this part, and this other limb would either be this or it may actually be this part of this here, like delineated by this little lagoon inside of it, that this would be the elbow right here, kind of leaning towards that, and then it kind of has this cut part there. And so yeah, and I don't know if this is from the corpse of one of their children, since it's like the couple is together here. I don't know. That would be gnarly. So yeah, you have to zoom in to really see the dark patterns on the land, but it's definitely there. So yeah, this is just showing what I think this is. I made this comparison during a movie, as the movie was starting yesterday in the theater. Then, yeah, so this would be his face, his chin, his mouth. He has all these weird layers inside his mouth, which, fits this kind of weird multi-layered topography there. So yeah, I think his eye is probably this part, and then this part will probably be this line under his eye. It's arguably bigger than that one. And the brow, something up here, maybe that somehow, or even this whole thing. And the hair is either delineated by this waterway or by some mountain ridge, or both. And yeah. And then this wound is either just this or like this coming in. So this is them in both their iterations again, like them as Britain and them as Ireland. And then this is them as Krusenstern Lagoon's shores. So, either this is north or, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what's north on here. Okay, yeah, so that's north. So, south this way, north is this way. So yeah, and this image is like composite maps. The dark part is kind of just a map of the lagoon itself, but the placement of these 2 people doesn't really match that. So there's really separate multiple maps within the map. Like there, the map of the coasts, and then the dark part is the map of the water, but they don't actually like fit together in a direct way. Very indirect way. So this painting is by Tanya Collins, and she says Aboriginal Australian art. This painting is by Tanya Collins and shares her seed dreaming. The dreaming tells the story of Jangala Watia Warna Acacia tenuissima, commonly known as narrow-leaved wattle, ancestor who traveled south from a small hill called Garlu Puranyangu to Yamunturungu, Mount Laibig. As he traveled to the Watia Warna seeds and placed them in Paraja's food carriers, one of which he carried on his head. Watia Warna is a seed-bearing tree that grows in open spinifex or mulga country. When people returned to their camp after protecting the seeds, they would make large windbreaks for shelter and winnow the seed in the late afternoon. Immature Watia Warnu seed is ground into a paste and can be used to treat upset stomachs. The associated Watia Warnu ceremony involves the preparation of a large ground painting. So they would do that ceremony, they would make the painting, which is a map, and it also, the ritual itself would probably help memorize these other things, like how to collect the seeds, how to ground the seeds, like everything associated with this would be interwoven into that ritual and into those songs. This is in Krusenstern Lagoon. So I'm thinking these could be like have been carved as models of America. Like, because this one looks like a bit like South America, Central America, North America, like Florida here, Hudson Bay here, like Alaska up here. And that this could be also a model of America, but this would be a model of America during the Ice Age when it was attached to Asia. So this would be, you know, basically Central America would be wider, Florida was wider because the sea level was 400 feet lower, over 400 feet lower. And then this would be the Bering Land Bridge connecting, America to Afro-Eurasia. And yeah. So, because it's relatively small topography, so it wouldn't be that hard for them to carve it a little bit, just a bit here and there to make it those shapes. Because, like, for instance, in Morocco, there was like a carving that was a model of Africa that sailors would go in, like this coastal cave, and they'd look at this carving on the rock and they would see the shape of Africa. So, and that was partly, I think, a natural shape, but maybe partly augmented like this, just like partly altered. Baba Yaga, the origins of the witch of Slavic folklore. So I think she, relates to geography. Figure of the terrifying grandmother doling out advice and punishment is a familiar archetype to many of us. It's no surprise then that today's monster from Russian and East Slavic folklore feels so widespread. Baba Yaga has appeared in operas, comic books, children's stories, cartoons, and films, not to mention centuries of folklore. Baba Yaga, once revered as more of a goddess than a witch, has undergone a transformation into the ugly, evil sorceress most people recognize today. However, she was originally a powerful deity linked to life, death, time, and the elements, with ties to winds, dark forests, the earth, the heavens, and the underworld. So just like the Hine, whatever goddess of the Polynesians, she may be Persephone, i.e. Virgo, which, it goes to the underworld and then kind of comes back part of the year. Goes to the southern hemisphere and then kind of goes to the neutral zone. So she's associated with the underworld. She sits between the realms of life and death, embodying both creation and destruction. So she sits between the realms of life and death. So that's why I'm thinking that she is actually Iceland's. So what is she? An elemental goddess, a dark sorceress, or a frightening grandmother? Let's explore. Baba Yaga is often associated with powerful magic and cannibalistic tendencies. She wields immense power over animals, nature, and even time. While she's frequently portrayed, and she could be like a female version of Yama. While she's frequently portrayed as an evil witch, not all depictions are so extreme. Most stories describe her as a tall, gaunt old woman with a bony leg, which could either mean severe thinness or even a literal skeleton leg. Her disheveled hair and enormous nose, which reaches the ceiling when she lies down, are also distinctive features. This large nose helps her identify visitors by scent, leading some to speculate that she might actually be blind. Her remote home is usually a hut located deep in the forest, sometimes depicted as a grand mansion, but more often as a peculiar structure supported by chicken legs, goat legs, or ram horns. The hut is surrounded by a fence made of human bones with a lock made from human teeth, making the suggestion that she's a cannibal seem quite plausible. The hut spins constantly, only stopping when a chant is recited. So it spins constantly. I mean, the whole earth spins, but Iceland is near the North Pole, so maybe it was seen as the North Pole spinning around like the axis point of the earth. I don't know. Baba Yaga's possessions are equally magical and unusual. She doesn't use a flying broom, but instead travels on a magical mortar, steering it with a pestle, sweeping the ground beneath her with a broom. She owns enchanted objects such as mirrors that turn into lakes. So this is obvious geomorphic, like symbolic topography. Mirrors that turn into lakes, combs that transform into forests, handkerchiefs that become rivers, a flying carpet, and even fire-breathing horses. So yeah, it's showing that it's all just symbolic geography with rivers and forests. The etymology of her name suggests that Baba Yaga's roots trace back to at least the medieval period. The first references to her appear in woodblock prints. So I'm saying she might be Iceland and she might be Virgo. So as above, so below. I think everything on Earth was associated with some part of the sky. Every constellation had its manifestations on Earth. First references to her appear in woodblock prints from the late 17th to early 18th century, marking her presence in early Russian oral traditions. The first written mention of Baba Yaga comes from Mikhail Lomonosov in 1755, who referred to her as Yaga Baba, comparing her to Roman deities. The first narrative of Baba Yaga was recorded in Vasily Levshin's 1780 collection, Russian fairy tales, where she's depicted as terrifying with tusk-like teeth and bare claw hands. Though Baba Yaga was primarily an Eastern European figure until the 19th century, she gained international recognition with the 1870s translations of Alexander Afanasyev's collection of 600 Russian folktales. These stories helped solidify her status, and an 1899 illustration remains one of the most iconic depictions of Baba Yaga. So I don't know. I had to find that, I guess. Despite her fearsome reputation, Baba Yaga isn't entirely evil. She can be benevolent, offering gifts or advice to protagonists. Even in the darkest tales, such as when she's a child kidnapper or a cruel trickster, her victims always escape unscathed. Her connection to cannibalism doesn't result in any actual eating. One story, for example, tells of a father who gives his daughter to Baba Yaga as a servant. The daughter completes her chores with the help of mice, earning Baba. So that's like Cinderella. That might be the basis of Cinderella with the mice, which might relate to some of the features of the Caspian Sea and the Volga Delta. Yaga's favor and reward of beautiful clothes. So yeah. So then she gives her she's the fairy godmother who gives her the magic dress, beautiful magic dress to go to the ball. But when the father checks on his daughter, he finds her wealthy, much to the jealousy of his wife, who sends her own daughter to Baba Yaga. This second girl, however, fails to complete the tasks and is punished by Baba Yaga, who places her bones in a box. This illustrates Baba Yaga's unpredictable nature, neither purely good nor evil. But again, that's similar to like the stepmother and the stepdaughter in Cinderella. Perhaps the most beautiful tale is Vasilisa the Beautiful, where a girl named Vasilisa, given a magical doll by her mother, finds herself sent to Baba Yaga's hut by her wicked stepmother. So again, wicked stepmother. These might all be variations on Cinderella. After several trials set by Baba Yaga, Vasilisa succeeds with the help of her doll, and in return, Baba Yaga gives her a flaming skull that ultimately burns the evil stepmother and stepsisters to cinders. See? So in the original version, they're the fucking cinders. But later on, she became the Cinderella. Anyway. Baba Yaga's stories often feature young protagonists on the cusp of adulthood or marriage, and her challenges act as rites of passage. These tales, while entertaining, also teach lessons about domestic duties and responsibilities, particularly for young women entering new households. The name Baba Yaga itself might reflect her complex origins. Baba initially referred to a married peasant woman or midwife in Old Russian, later evolving into a term for a difficult elderly woman. In some Eastern European languages, Baba even means pelican, which could explain Baba Yaga's long beak-like nose and her chicken-legged hut. The word Yaga is more elusive, with theories suggesting meanings like horrible, to ride, or even connection to the Latin word for snake. In modern interpretations, Yaga often signifies an old granny witch. Yeah, Baba Yaga's appearance with her hut on chicken legs and her magical tools might be explained by the practical realities of ancient Slavic life, where nomadic hunters constructed elevated structures to protect their food supplies from animals, and where women traditionally used mortars and pestles for daily tasks. This blend of the supernatural with the mundane may explain her enduring multifaceted nature. In modern times, Baba Yaga has also appeared in media post-Soviet Union, appearing in comics, films. Oh, I gotta adjust my freaking self. Sorry. Feel free to watch in as many installments as you want, because I'm just trying to get all this data posted and recorded so I can move on to the next eventually in my next video. In modern times, Baba Yaga's legacy remains strong today. As both a grandmotherly figure and a malevolent witch, she embodies contradictions, powerful and nurturing, terrifying and wise. Perhaps this paradox is why she continues to fascinate and endure. This, as folklorist Andreas Johns aptly notes, there can be no single correct interpretation or understanding of Baba Yaga, which gives her a unique freedom to evolve with each retelling. So yeah, I'm thinking she's supposed to be between the realms. So Greenland is basically part of America. It's considered an American island, just like all the Caribbean islands are part of the hemisphere. Whereas Iceland is between worlds. It's right. I mean, it's closer to Greenland than it is to Europe or the British Isles or anything, but it's still kind of a little bit of a limbo land or whatever. And I think it's one of the starving spirits in the Buddhist system. But so anyway, I'm thinking this is her nose. She's shown with this like weird ass long nose here. So, and like weird feet and stuff. So anyway, I'm guessing that's her. That fits her position and her shape. That would be her nose. This would be her chin. This would be her chicken feet. And this would be her house, her hut, whatever, and all the different things sticking out of it. Other possibilities are like, this is, well, probably not this. There's some island in the Gulf of St. Lawrence that kind of looks like a bird's head and a bird's foot. So you could say this would be like her chicken foot, and this would be her pelican head or something. But probably not. And this is relatively small, so it's probably not significant enough. This is kind of like a bird-like shape, another bird-like shape on Iceland. And I think. And this is, I think this is like, one of the Russian islands that, they're in the Arctic. So this would be maybe another candidate. But, that maybe this would be upside down, like this would be, or that this would be her chicken foot, and that's, maybe this is from that, and then this would be her beak or whatever. But, or it could be this, that Newfoundland, that this would be her chicken leg or legs, and that this would be her long nose right here, sticking forward to the people arriving in the Newfoundland of America. But the fact that she's said to be between worlds, that suggests Iceland. So and then I think this is another bird shape in Iceland. And this is another bird shape in Iceland. And potentially another bird shape in Iceland. So this is the disembodied legs scene. So I'm thinking, this tree is shown coming up out of her, but it's kind of retrograde. So it's actually, I think, coming out of her feet as opposed to her head. And so I think this is like the trunk of the tree, and then continuing this way, and then the branches are, I think this is a branch, and then this is the branch, and then these are the two legs straddling this branch. So, like, because it shows the trunk, and then there's this branch, and then this branch, and then there's even another branch. So I don't know what that would be. I guess maybe this branch, and then this branch, and then this branch, and these two legs. And yeah, that arm, I think, is just another part of that, like part of one of these. And so yeah, the vision, this is showing these shamanic paintings that show cosmology. It's a doorway, cosmic doorway, which means it's, showing doorway on actual cosmology, which is to say geography and astronomy. So I don't know exactly what these show, but probably parts of Mexico and parts of the sky. I mean, like this part almost, that could be an island, that could be a lake. So yeah, you'd have to ask. I mean, that's, I guess, the sun and the four directions. And so yeah. So what all the details are. So yeah, I'm guessing this is Baba Yaga, like this is her nose. She's often shown with a long pointy chin, a long nose. I would say this would be her mouth right here. She's got a little smile kind of, and then this little lagoon or whatever lake would be her eye. And yeah, I don't know where like Reykjavik is or whatever. It might be around there. And yeah. Long chin, long nose, weird pointy bits pointing every direction. And so I was going to try to find the part where it shows the close-up of this pattern in the, the waterways. Well, I think I kind of did. More or less at some point. Oh yeah, this is like a shrine in Japan, so I forgot to photograph the actual shrine, but Hodo-san Shrine, a power spot for good fortune and financial luck, just 90 minutes from central Tokyo, located in northwestern Saitama Prefecture. Nagatoro town is about 90 minutes from Tokyo by train. Known for its beautiful Arakawa River Gorge and seasonal scenery, it has long been a popular destination for visitors. Situated at the foot of Mount Hodo, Hodo-san Shrine is a historic shrine with a total of approximately 1,900 years. So it's basically a shrine to that mountain, Mount Hodo. In addition to being widely worshipped for housing a garden deity protecting against fire and theft, the shrine is also popular as a power spot for good fortune and financial luck, inspired by its auspicious name, which can be interpreted as climbing a treasure mountain. So Hodo is the treasure mountain. Surrounded by lush forests, the shrine grounds are filled with a refreshing atmosphere that seems to cleanse both body and mind. Visitors are often captivated by the beautifully colored carvings decorating the shrine buildings, which stand with a dignified presence. At the summit of Mount Hodo is the Okumiya Inner Shrine, which can be reached in about 5 minutes by ropeway. Visitors can also enjoy seasonal flowers such as plum blossoms, Japanese allspice, and azaleas, as well as spectacular views overlooking the Chichibu Mountains. If that sounds grand, be sure to make your way to the summit. So yeah, it just shows how like these shrines are just nature. It's just to honor, study, and worship nature. Um, yeah. So yeah, this also could be an iteration of Maui's hook, but this one is more submerged. So there's basically the this, and then this one is, I think, off on its own. And then this one is with this island, Nihao or something. And then this one is with the actual island of Maui. Yeah, I guess it was this. I did show this. So that just shows these patterns. So, like people would get like, tattoos of patterns like this, or they'd have it on their fabrics, but often it was associated with actual geography and topography. So their tattoos or their clothes patterns could help them memorize geography. All right. Guess I'll leave it at that for now. But thank you much, and take care. I'm gonna go to another Obon festival this weekend in Watsonville. Like in the San Jose one, I posted my comparisons all over the area, like in Japantown. Although I think they tore them down at some point, but at least it hopefully stayed up for a while, and hopefully some people saw it. Like somebody just searched me on academia, so maybe that's from that. So I don't know if I'll post posters in the Watsonville one, but I'll just at least go to the festival there with my friend and see how that is. And then I'll probably go to the one the next weekend in San Francisco, because they have them like different days at different temples so that people can go to all of them. But it's all, the Day of the Dead, the Day of the Underworld, and especially the Day of the Illusion, Gaki realm. So, yeah, I'll might get some photos from that. I might get some other photos from my mom from the one that I went to and post those and whatnot. But anyway, take care and thank you much. Peace.